Hello, hello. Boy, have we got a show for you today. My name is Chelle Wagner. Welcome to the Heart of the Tribe show. I just wanted to give you a quick update. Today, we're going to be talking about Gad, the tribe of Gad, and the immune system, the hematology system. My friend Nurse Leigh is going to be joining me and showing us how the connections to the physical immune system also correspond to so many things that we learn about the tribe of Gad. Now, I find this particularly interesting because I have a condition since 2014 that I deal with on a daily basis called SIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And I'm going to be sharing some about that and how even trauma plays a role in that and everything that we can see about it. So I just wanted to let you know what the show is going to be about today and hope that you'll join me right after our introduction.
Their journey began in Yasharel, but they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beats, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.
All righty. Well, hello and welcome, Leigh.
Shalom, Chelle. I'm so glad to be back with you today. I'm just praising Yah that you're feeling better. We all missed you so much. Everyone did.
Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I was just thinking today, when I get like an illness like that, because I already do deal with the seers and have for so long, it really does play a huge havoc in me. It makes it almost impossible to function or think. I was even reviewing a video that I did 4 years ago, which was I made it 9 months after leaving my moldy home. And I was trying to wrap my brain around everything that had gone on, because it took me 3 years, just about almost 3 years to figure out what it was that was happening with me. And then 9 months into that recovery, I had made a video about my experience thus far. And I know we're going to end up putting that on our different channels so that people can see that and kind of compare, what that was like for me 4 years ago and what I've kind of learned since. And we'll be talking about some of that today. Interesting, huh?
It is interesting. And I know it had to be a painful journey for you because coming from the medical field, being a nurse, I understand how misdiagnosed all of this is. Even to be diagnosed with Lyme's disease, people are misdiagnosed so many different things they're told they have, or they're depressed, or it's in your mind. Try to belittle you, and really your body is attacking yourself, and you do not need someone attacking you mentally while you're going through a struggle. But that's what happens, unfortunately.
It really is. I think that that's been what makes it all such a tangled mess. Like when I try to figure out what's happening, it's always been like this tangled mess. I've been so proud of my husband Robert sharing so much of himself and his story and the struggles on his show Saved by Grace. He was doing it last night and taking us to that point of the bottom for him, to where he could hear Yah's voice, and he was going to start towards the solution. But there's been, so much pain. And I know that for me, part of my curiosity in all this, and why it's so much fun to do this with you, Nurse Leigh, is that I'm able to kind of examine these things and go back and look at like what was going on in my life from an early age and what maybe made me more vulnerable. How did the enemy think, okay, yeah, I'm going to get her with this one. It makes you wonder, how targeted we are from, and we have no idea,
No.
like what's happening. We're clueless, right?
That's absolutely right.
It's
It's going on constantly. And I realized early in my career, actually, before I ever became a nurse, I always had this pull that illness is rooted in not only your body, but in your mind and in your ruach, in your spirit. And that to heal one, you have to heal all of them. You can't just approach one facet because you are multifaceted. You really are. Each life is like a mosaic. That's why I love the mosaic heart, or the mosaics. Is that's us, right? We're
yeah,
fractured, and all these different colors and all these different things that are in us. They're part of us. So we have to heal the mind, the body, and our ruach.
yeah.
Or you're not well.
Yeah, it reminds me of that of the Mercy Poured Forth you did. I think this is like my favorite one that you had done, with the different pieces of pottery, and then how the gold is in the midst, and it's all being put back together with the gold. And I was like, wow, that's just
Absolutely.
such a powerful picture of
It
what
is.
Yah does, in
And
our,
that gold makes that piece of pottery stronger than it was before. So
yeah,
not only do you have his beautiful light and shine within you, piecing you together, you're now stronger because you're held together by him.
by him. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely amazing. What the enemy thinks that he's going to take and destroy you with, Yah just turns it and uses it for his glory. Because like anybody, I really relate to this whole thing with Paul. I mean, when you've got this long-term illness thing, right? And it's stuff that you deal with every day.
Right.
I never get a break from this. It's not there's something going on with my physical body every single day since this happened to me, and sometimes I'll get really excited, and I'll have like, I'll have a good couple of weeks, and I'll think, oh my gosh, something that I'm doing is actually working, out of all these supplements and everything that I try, and this diet and that diet, and I try this prayer and that prayer, and I get a little bit better for a little bit, and I have some energy, and I can do some things, and inevitably I overdo it during that time, right? Because I get so excited, and then it hits again, and it can be really hard, because you're like, I understand why Paul says he besought Yah 3 times to remove this thorn in the flesh, and Yah said, my grace is sufficient for you. you know Sometimes I think that there's just things that, because it is so hard to deal with. Nita was saying on her show, I think it was yesterday, her show, where she was saying, when the things that you end up teaching are the things that you really end up learning about. and and um isn't that true? Kat was saying hello, so I was looking over at the comments. Hi Kat, hi Ren, hi
Yeah.
James. Good to
Shalom,
see
everyone.
everybody. Yeah, it's just interesting, because we do seek that, and we never stop seeking that, and we do get measures of relief, but yet there are things that he has us to learn. And I know with my life, so many times in my life, he's just like, just use what's happened in your life. Really, the real value is in your story,
Right.
and coming to this journey of this place of knowing that you are treasured. I think that for me, that is the huge part of the journey, because when you come out of a childhood of trauma and abuse and shame, and you take all this stuff on yourself, and you believe that because of what other people did to you, that you are a bad person, and then your life just perpetuates that. I mean, it's the devil loves that one, right? Let's just use that and get him in a cycle, going
Right.
down a no-win road, right? But
Right.
and so the gift of Yah teaching us that we are special and loved in his sight is just absolutely incredible.
To be vulnerable as well. that's how we reach those that are going through the same thing, right? If we are vulnerable and we can show them those deepest scars that we have and say, look, I know I don't always have it together, but even on my worst day and even on my best day, Yahweh loves me. He
Yeah.
loved me back then when I was making mistakes. It was not he didn't choose for bad things to happen to me, but he chose to pull me out of those things so that I could help give a hand to those that are trying to come out of their own struggles. And
Yeah.
like with Robert being vulnerable and all of us, Laura Lee's show and
Mhm.
your sharing, each one of us has a different mosaic, a different facet to share. Brother Leigh and his father, we each have these different facets that we're able to share of our own mosaic of our life, that there is a person somewhere right now thinking, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to
Right.
be out of this. I can't get out of this hole. And we're here to say, yes, you can.
Yes.
You may have pain with every step, but guess what? You've got those steps from Yahweh, and He is sufficient.
He
Whether
is.
you have the pain or whatever it is that you're dealing with, He is sufficient. He may not take that off of us. He may not take that pain. I deal with chronic pain,
Yeah.
uh, but I I take every single step knowing He's got me here for a reason, and my pain is for a reason.
Yeah. And it absolutely is. Because I'm not sure everybody understands like what I'm talking about when I talk about Sears and chronic inflammatory response syndrome and what it is. I wanted to take just a few minutes before we jump into
Yeah.
GAD and the immune system and share just a little bit about that, about what it is, because it's complicated, and it's really complicated, but the people who deal with it, they understand it. It ends up, like people end up kind of thinking you're a little bit crazy. So, so just a tad. So anyway, this is one of my books that I do like his ability to research. He has done some really, really good research on this subject. This is Dr. Neil Nathan, and he's got some great just little snippets that try to help people understand what he's talking about here and what it is. So it's called Toxic Heal Your Body by Neil Nathan, MD. And let me just get to the part I wanted to read. He's saying right here, this is chapter 1, why would anyone want to read this book? So it tells about who he is. He says, I specialize in diagnosing and treating patients who find that few practitioners know what to do with them. This field of medicine has no name yet. I've been calling it complex medical problem solving for some time. I didn't start out in this field. In fact, this field did not really exist until recently. And boy, isn't that true? I have certainly found that out when I tried to navigate through my my different symptoms in the medical system, which is what I did that Facebook video about 4 years ago, was what that was like for me. So I know that we're going to end up posting that so that people can find it easily. But let me get over here. So Sears, identifying what we are currently calling chronic inflammatory illness or environmentally acquired illness, is just the beginning of a somewhat complicated diagnostic process. It begs the question, what exactly is triggering this illness? It says over the last 10 years, we've had a wide variety of toxic substances and infections can be the culprits. Any number of viruses, bacterial infections, and parasites have been found to be possible inciting causes. Any number of environmental toxins, of which there are a bewildering array, also have been noted to be potential causes. So, where do we start? Um, in this in this part of the book, I hope to simplify the process while at the same time honoring its complexity. In my experience, the two major causes of overwhelming sensitivity are mold toxicity and Lyme disease with its co-infections. While there are many, many other possibilities, nothing else comes close to these two entities as a probable cause. I would estimate that 80% of my sensitive patients are struggling with mold toxicity as a primary trigger, and 20% were triggered by Lyme disease. Both of these conditions profoundly weaken the immune system, which is what we're talking about today, which opens the door to all kinds of opportunistic infectious agents that have been dormant in the body and allows them to join the party. Isn't that true, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
what a party.
What a party it is. And so there's this chart on here, right? And so this was what was so wild. So that was my experience when I went to the doctor. I was like, she's like, well, can you tell me what's going on with you? And I'm like, well, suddenly my vision is blurry. My hair is falling out. I get these weird rashes. I have these random pains. I get headaches. I have chronic sinus. My bowel system's all messed up. I'm forgetting my words. I have a tremendous joint pain. I can't stand for sometimes anyone to just poke me in the arm. Feels like they just punched me,
And was her first question to you, are you depressed?
Yes. Yes.
Because that's
Yes.
always the where they go.
That's
instead of
exactly what happened to me is, after 18 months of, well, let's do this and let's test that and let's just, this, that, and the other, they said, well, you have fibromyalgia. And
that's the catch-all.
the catch-all.
Yeah.
You have
That means we have
fibromyalgia.
no idea.
And I'm like, does fibromyalgia make your vision blurry? Does fibromyalgia make your hair fall out? Does fibromyalgia make your joints swell up? Does it cause rashes? Does it cause ulcers in your mouth? Does it cause you to forget your words? It's just like, there's no way that
Yeah.
that causes. I said, I was so disgusted by that point, because it took me 18 months to finally navigate my way through the system to get an appointment with the exalted rheumatologist. He spent, 8 minutes with me, as he's using it as a teaching opportunity for his, intern or whatever. And in 8 minutes, they dismiss me. I wait 18 months to get an appointment. And in 8 minutes, they have dismissed me as a mental patient with fibromyalgia.
We said you needed antidepressant, and here is a phone number of a psychiatrist that we're going to send you to.
Yep. That's exactly what happened to me.
It's a failed system. I'm not ever one to say men get better treatment than women, but in the medical field, women, the number one thing they're going to say to you is it's in your mind or you're crazy. And the research stops there. So praise y'all for the doctor of that book that's doing the research to realize this is real. And it affects so many more people than anyone realizes. That's the scary part. That's the scary part, is there are people right now going to a psychiatrist with no other help that think they're just crazy instead of a chronic inflammatory response system going on. That can be environmental. It can be from everything.
Yeah.
In our environment.
It really can. There's one more little part on this that I wanted to share with you guys. So I'm in chapter 3, and it's dealing with the mold toxicity portion of his book, right? I'm on page 50 and 51. It just says, the important part here is that the mycotoxins can, by causing this uncontrolled inflammatory release of cytokines. This is what, when this current thing came upon, I was just, like, wow, because I've already been dealing with so much of what they were talking about for so long. And I knew it was parasitic in nature. And because I knew that mine stemmed from a brown recluse, a recluse bite, and the mold, and past traumas that my body was holding on to, and past other virus opportunistic things, right? And the way that I described it is that I had gone through life with a bucket, like, and you'll have to tell me, Nurse Leigh, if this makes sense to you, right? This is me trying to like puzzle it out with my, you know, unmedical brain, but going through it as a patient. The way that I started to look at it was that throughout my life, that I had a certain like bucket, you know, and things that are not good for you fall into the bucket. And it's okay because that's really where they belong, you know, is in the bucket, not running around in your body, right?
Right.
And but every time a trauma, an illness, you know, even the reaction of shame and self-hatred that built up within me because of being a victim of sexual and emotional abuse, right? And so all these things get thrown into your bucket. They're all there, whether it was emotional, whether it, you know, or whether it was physical, however it came, or medical, you know, because my family highly believed in the medical system, and I can't even tell you how many preventative things that I was probably administered in my childhood, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows what I'm saying. I try to keep it easy so that we can keep our YouTube channel, right? So so anyway, those things build up. And the way I understand it is you can get to a certain level and then there's something that you know, it's like any bucket that's being filled, you get to a point where one drop makes it overflow.
Overflow.
And so the I believe that brown recluse spider bite for me and the lime that was associated with it was the final drop in the bucket that tipped the whole thing over, and I've been dealing with the tipped over bucket on a daily basis ever since. And nobody really gets it because you still look pretty healthy, you know, you don't look like you're struggling all the time, but you're living a life to where you struggle all the time, and people give you no grace for it because one, the medical association says that you're just crazy, that it doesn't really exist, and the you know, so people tend to just dismiss you, you know, like, well, you
You're
know,
crazy.
you're crazy, you
Yeah.
know, it's just all in your mind, you know, you look fine
And
to me.
what you're talking about, your bucket there,
Yeah.
is everything that we encounter in our life, from trauma to alcohol, smoking. All these things create receptor sites within our brain, within every cell of our body. And those receptor sites can grab on and attach to other things, not just the things that they're receptor sites for. And it's a thought, maybe a theory of mine as well, that those things that are those receptors that come about from our trauma and from our pain, they grab onto certain parasites and things. Like they grab onto those and deep root those in, you know, and I could be wrong, but I feel there's a connection there between the receptor sites in our brain that happen from traumas,
Yeah.
from deep wounds, from you know, I smoked cigarettes for half my life. You know, those receptor
Yeah.
sites grab onto other things as well, you know, and I believe they help fuel illnesses and chronic inflammatory type situations in our lives because they are such deep receptor sites from traumas and wounds and things that we've inflicted on ourselves and things that were inflicted on us. And
Right.
I don't know, you know, I know some people that spend their whole life dealing with the chronic pain of it. And when you study that out, that pain is associated to that trauma. Like
Right.
I can sometimes feel the pain in my leg from when I was hit by a car the same way as the day I was hit by the car sometimes. And I know it's not like that. You know, this is 30 something years later. You know, there's no reason why I should have the pain like that anymore. But it's attached to that receptor site. And I believe it's the same with the illnesses, even with your Lyme's disease. It is probably in every one of your pain receptors that are associated to trauma. They're together. It roots together.
It's really amazing, you know. I was thinking about it and kind of rereading one other thing this morning and thinking about, like what is it that brings me relief sometimes when I'm in the deepest amount of those pains. And for me, it's Psalm 139, like going back and connecting that Yahuah created me in the womb, that he'll never leave me. He'll never forsake me. He's with me every step of the way, every single thing that I ever encounter. He's actually there before I am,
Right.
ready with an
He was
answer.
there at your beginning and your end.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
same for me, Chelle. Same for me.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to read this one little part and then we'll go into Gad. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, so I just wanted to share this last little thing because it's dealing with the cytokines, and I think it's interesting, right? So the important point here, and again, I'm on this one, chapter 3, page 50, about the mycotoxins. The important point here is that the mycotoxins can, by causing this uncontrolled inflammatory release of cytokines, directly impact immune regulation, hormonal balance, and brain and nerve function, leading to a confusing array of symptoms. Let's spend a little more time on cytokines because they are so crucial to this pathophysiological process. Cytokines are special proteins, there are lots of them, that are responsible for both healthy and inflammatory immune processes. For example, if you are infected by a nasty virus, your first symptoms may include fatigue, joint and muscle aches and pains, fever and chills, and brain fog. It is often assumed that these are the symptoms of the virus in the body, but they are not. These symptoms are created by the immune system reaction to the virus. In an attempt to kill the virus, your immune system releases a flood of cytokines, and it is this flood that causes your symptoms. You see, your immune system is recognizing a foreign invader, in this scenario, a virus, but it can also be a bacterium or other microbe, and is setting off an alarm reaction to mobilize cytokines to help deal with this threat. This triggers an immune response to recruit additional immune cells like macrophages and lymphocytes. Both are types of white blood cells that enter the battlefield and make even more cytokines in an effort to complete the job. When the immune system detects that the invaders are gone, it is supposed to send out a signal that ends this reaction. But if it is a persistent toxin triggering this process, and you are among the 25% of individuals who cannot readily get rid of these toxins, this out of control inflammatory process persists. This is the essence of the problem. We need to get the inciting toxins out of the body, quiet down the immune system, and deal with the fallout, which I will discuss below. I just thought that was a really neat snapshot.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's that very cytokine storm that we saw during the last 4 years with the use of the R drug.
Yeah.
That was the protocol. It was that cytokine storm and being intubated that caused many deaths. That exact response to that drug.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's a wonderful representation of what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ingrid,
Absolutely.
I see we have a new Heart of the Tribe member. Ingrid, welcome. And you definitely have found a tribe here. We're so glad that you found us.
Yes. So happy that you are here. Welcome. Okay. So, I'm trying something new, and I did just want to share about that. I know you've kind of looked into this a little bit too. I'm doing a protocol. I'm always trying something. I never stop. It doesn't matter that I've been dealing with this for 8 years. I still believe that there's an answer to this solution. I mean, an answer to this problem. And I keep going after solutions. One of our friends, Heather Gray, who now works at Wellbeing by Design, which is Dr. Alfonso Manzo's center. she had suggested that I try a protocol that is a parasite cleanse. And it's got a combination of diatomaceous earth and food grade diatomaceous earth binders and a
Chlorine
formula called,
dioxide.
ClO2, right?
ClO2. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Don't some people call that MMS?
They do.
Yeah. And so I am currently on that. Now, I started it at first. I did have a little bit of a setback because I got sick. What I saw that happened to me is I hit it hard and fast, probably too fast for someone who has as much toxicity as I do,
And weakened immune system. Yes.
Yeah.
You are going to have to do everything slowly.
Yeah, and I tend to find those out the hard way because
The hard way.
I have the personality of a bulldog that says, I can do anything, I can go after anything. I've always had that personality of a real, like,
I believe it. I
I'll
believe it.
plow my way through the wall,
I am up the mountain.
one way or another. And it can be really hard,
I understand.
to have this type of thing. I get put back on my butt saying, oh, you're not going to plow through either. You're going to have to rely on prayer. You're going to have to slow it down and not think that you are Superwoman and can just do whatever.
Fly right off.
Right. So Yah allows these things in my life, I think, sometimes just to go, let's rein it in.
We're going to do this one step at a time.
Please don't try to march forward without me, Chelle. You actually need me.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I started it. I guess I had really lowered my immune system by starting as full and heavy as I could on this program. And this is typical of what happens in my life. I went to the chiropractor because, my body was starting to break down from what was happening with the cleanse, and it was getting all out of whack. And literally one of my ribs had come out and I hadn't been able to breathe. It was even harder to breathe than normal for 4 days. And so I went to the chiropractor, and there was a gentleman in there who had used at least 15 times the recommended amount of cologne on his body, which is an extremely toxic substance, that these things are made of, these synthetic chemical stuff. And I had been on the table for a long time. And then I went into the waiting room before you go into the doctor's office, and he was the patient before me. And I'm trying to sit in this room where this man is at, and my lips start to swell. That's what happens to me first. I will taste it when it's a chemical reaction, because I can react to a lot of things, but it was the chemical. And so I start feeling it. My lips start swelling and tingling, and my tongue starts getting and I start feeling my throat closing, and it's hard to breathe. And, then I start going into lung distress, and I'm like, oh, okay, I cannot sit here in this room with this man. I'm going to have to go sit in the other room. So, I did my best, but still it was too late. By the time that happens, and I don't know if this is medically accurate. I'm doing this from the patient perspective, right? So you have to tell me, Leigh, if this makes sense. What happens to me is it's like all the floodgates seem to open. It's like
the
I'm
cytokine storm. Yeah, it's your cytokine storm taking off, and it's sending those lymphocytes, and that's the fluid. That's why you have all that fluid everywhere. And just think about those people during the,
Yeah.
ventilated with that. You at least were able to get up and, cough or breathe or do whatever you needed to do to clear your airway. But that's exactly what was happening with the cytokine storm. Yeah. Your body reacted to that foreign invader,
Yeah.
I'm sure because you had been exposed to mold and certain chemicals and smells, I'm sure immediately flare that right back up. So that makes total absolute sense that that's what happened.
And then I think what happened is then right after that appointment, Robert and I then needed to run into Walmart to get something. It was a Friday afternoon prep day. So, we're making our last
Getting
minute
your stuff
whatever,
done.
right? And get what we need and come on home, get ready for the Shabbat. And I think I walked into Walmart in that state. So with all the gates down. So whatever is floating
You
around
caught it.
Walmart, it hit me and I brought it home with me. And then 4 days later, well, it took me until Monday. So that was Friday. By Monday, I was really ill and I had 2 Odeo classes that day and my show with Laura Leigh. And I remember sitting there on that show with Laura Leigh and I was like, the headache that I was developing that day was just incredible.
I'm sure.
I'd never quite had a headache quite like that. And then, that's what happened to me. And then 4 days later, then Robert got it, so whatever it was, I think that my walls were down and
Right.
it was opportunistic. Yeah,
Absolutely. It jumped right in there.
it really did. Absolutely wild. Okay. Well, now that we've been talking for 36 minutes, I'm sorry. I'm like Gabby today.
Hey, we've not been on in a while. It's
That's right.
perfectly okay.
That's right. So, thank you. Ariella says, Shalom. I've missed you, Chelle, and missed this program. Love it. Enjoy your teachings. Thank you so much. We really
Yes,
appreciate that.
we are
Yes.
so glad to see everyone today. I have missed this. So
I
we
have
can gab
too.
if we need to gab.
Yeah. Yeah. I've really missed it too. So I did a little bit of work in the pictograph when I started to look at the word Gad. So I'm just going to add this here for a moment.
Yay. We
All
all
right.
love the pictograph.
I know it. So we've got GAD and the immune or the hematology system. Is it 2 separate systems? Is this the same system?
It's 2 separate, but they work so very closely together. So it's fitting that Yah downloaded it to you that they were together with GAD, and we're going to see why.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I don't know why. This is what's been so funny and so much fun to work with you, Nurse Leigh, is because I got this information and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know anything about this stuff.
And see, I've never studied the tribe, so it's like both of us are putting this together, and it's amazing.
It's so funny. It's like that show. What do they call it when it's like that game show when you get the ability to phone a friend, right?
Oh yeah.
I had to use my phone a friend.
Yes. I will be your phone a friend anytime.
Awesome. Oh, so funny. All right. So GAD and the immune or the hematology system. So we see right here, it looks like a backwards. Is it a backwards L? Or is that a frontwards L?
It's a
because
frontwards
it's a frontwards L. Because I do the Hebrew and the English, and I'm constantly having to now look at things and go, is that right? But it's the shape of a leg and a foot, right? As if you're going somewhere, you're traveling somewhere because you're not getting far without your feet. So your feet are taking you in a direction, right? And in this case, they're taking you towards a door. Is it a good tour? Is it a bad tour? It depends on whether it's the anonym or the contronym, like what Nita was saying. Is it the light? Is it the dark? Right? But you're going to a doorway, right?
Right.
So in the pictograph, there are several Strong's and Brown Driver Briggs references where the word is spelled the same. Now, when I say that, I'm saying that it's spelled the same in the pictograph, because in the pictograph, you don't have any Masoretic vowel pointings. You just have the odiote, just have the letters. So that's why I say that. So it was H1407, 1408, 1409, and 1410. So the various meanings, rather than giving you every single bit of the detail, I kind of put it together. And it is like a troop, fortune, or coriander, which is really interesting.
That is interesting.
The coriander that it's associated with is like the manna. When they looked at the food that had been given and it resembled coriander seed, and yet they said they called it manna, which means, what is it? You know, that's the meaning of that word. What is it? Even, but it had that taste of coriander. So I found that very interesting. Um, the H1464, when you would boil these things down to the root, is the root for Gad. And what we see, you know, you go from the 2 letters to the 3-letter root. You've got the Gimel and then a Vav and a door. So your journey is connected to the door that you're going to walk through. You know, it really doesn't change the meaning a whole lot when you look at it in the pictograph, but you do have a connecting point there. And it gives it the Brown Driver Briggs and Strong's give a meaning that it's a verb and that it means to invade or to attack. Now, isn't that interesting? Because this is what we're talking about with this immune system, this thing that invades, this thing that attacks, right? This is kind of the discussion we've been having. Then we go to some similar words here. So we've got Gadad, which is a similar word, spelled the exact same in the pictograph, is H1413 and 1414. So then we've got the Gimel Dalet Dalet. Okay, and it gives the definition in Brown Driver Briggs and Strong's as to cut down, hew down, chop down, to gather together, to muster, to band together. You know, you've almost got a journey that goes to a door that's within a door.
Right.
You know, it's like layered, like,
Right.
you know, and it's together. It's something that's gathered. You know, there's 2 of them. There's no longer 1, but there's 2.
Right.
So that's really interesting to me. And then there's another spelling for it here in H1416, which is Gadad. And so you got the Gimel, the Dalet, the Vav, and the Dalet. So the door connected to the door, you know, the journey of the door connected to another door. And it's given the definition in Strong's and Brown Driver Briggs as an army, a band of troops, a band of marauding troops, right?
Wow.
And so I had put just a couple of verses where you can find, and I don't have it blown up very good here. So I'm going to remove this to the screen and maybe I'll just read parts of that when we get there. There's just so much in this, but I at least wanted to start off sharing with the name. Now, I know that you wanted to share a little bit about our new website before we totally even jump into more of this. So I wanted you to share that. And then we're just going to jump around all over the place today, Leigh.
All righty. Let's see here if I can get our website up. So James, my wonderful husband, has worked on and got this put together for Heart of the Tribes. This is the website. And you can be reached at heartofthetribes.org. There is an S on the end of it now, heartofthetribes.org. And this is our opening page. And isn't that nice? These are all of the presentations that you will find on the Heart of the Tribes YouTube and Facebook. Each one of these have their own YouTubes as well. There's out of Africa. That's Chris McIntyre out of South Africa. Here's Robert's, your husband. Wonderful shows, Saved by Grace, Mercy Poured Forth. That's, let's see, we go Monday through Friday, or Sunday through Friday. There we go. Sunday through Friday. That's every morning. Wonderful encouragement, and a different person has a different day every day of the week. And we've got Blood of the Lamb Ministries. That's Catherine and Leigh Hood. And he also does our Let's Talk Torah on Sabbath with alternating guests. And sometimes he wings it on his own. Either way, He brings such a depth to Let's Talk Torah. It's amazing. We have Heart of the Tribes, that is Chelle, and that's what we are doing right now. And lately we've been going through the 12 tribes and the 12 body systems. And Remnant Remedy, this is Nitsa Moshe. She also has wonderful website. Is it remnantremedy.com? Is that her website?
It
We'll get
is.
there.
It
I
is.
think it's all listed underneath programs. We'll get there in a second. And then we've got Modern Day Samaritan Woman. That's Leigh, and a wonderful series that she's doing, helping so many that have gone through addictions and traumas. Just a wonderful help there. Reports from Under the Desk is a show on Mondays that Chelle does sometimes to bring news reports or introduce new shows. And walking. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and actually, that's about to change a little bit. I think I'm really going to, now that I'm done teaching the audio class I was teaching on Mondays, it kind of frees up my time. So that will become a much more regular show now. Yeah, and I'll probably be sharing quite a bit about, some alternative treatments I'm trying. Like I really want to talk about the cleanse that I'm trying to do from crownwellness.com. I'm going to talk about it on that show. Just some other things about dealing with, health issues and herbs and different things going on. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I might talk about some economic stuff on there once in a while. Just depends,
Yeah, where the Ruach leads you.
Right.
I like it. And then we have our Walking in the Word, which is the ladies' show, which is Chelle and Catherine Hood and myself. And then a guest we have had Melissa McIntyre. We've had Nitsa Moshe. Leigh may join us sometime. So it's just a wonderful women's show together where we do different topics. It's amazing. And we can each click through. Oh, I've got to go to the actual one. See our mission. Hopefully, yay, it's pulling up. I love this. Do you want to read it? It's so good. And it's you.
I can't see it very good, but you go ahead.
I'll read it. Heart of the Tribes is a melting pot of nobodies brought together under the Mishkan by the divine hand of Yahweh to speak his words, not the world's, follow his commands, not the adversaries, and be a light on the hill in the face of crippling darkness and destruction. Here under the Mishkan, we offer healing, friendship, kinship, hope, love, and care for all. Our calling is to reach those ears that long to hear the truth and bring everlasting nourishment from the bread and water of life, our Messiah. We are calling the dry bones back together as Yahweh will breathe life once again into his people. Yahusha is coming back, and we are here to help you endure. And then we have Ezekiel 37, 4-6. Again, he said unto me, prophesy upon these bones, and say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Adonai Yahweh unto these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and ye shall live, and I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and ye shall live, and ye shall know that I am Yahweh. Wow. I love reading that. It kind of chokes me up every time because that's a pretty serious charge that we have here. And we feel very fortunate and blessed by Yahweh to be able to do this in this time.
I know. It's so beautiful, and James has done such a beautiful job of putting this together. I just love how it has turned out. For time's sake today, will you take us to the page that has like how we would get to your website?
Right. So you just click programs, right?
Okay.
And all of the programs are listed here with our schedule. And when you go into each, this is mine and James, when you go into each program, click, you will see their bio. Each one of these are links that go directly to our Facebook, our YouTube, and then this is our website that James and I have for our business. That's not the one I meant to go to. Let me see. Here we go. This is our store. There we go.
Fabulous.
And it's our faith-based store where we have different shirts that we're doing right now. I love our fall feast shirts that we just finished. There's a lot going in there, and I'm trying every week to work and get things added in. Sukkot's coming
Beautiful.
up. Yeah. He's done such a good job getting everything in here. And each one of us also at the bottom, you will see the latest video. This is from last week for us, but then you can always click and go in and it will take you directly to that person's YouTube so that you can see their playlist as well. And it may not pull up for me. Everything's so slow. Our internet has not been internet friendly.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are having that trouble. There it is, though. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it pulls up for each person when you go from the programs directly to them. And then our Telegram was where people can join Telegram was at the bottom of our mission page.
Okay, very good.
But everyone can get on there, go to heartofthetribes.org and just go through all your tabs. There's a wealth of information there. These are all the links for Heart of the Tribes that you can go to, as well as our podcast.
Wow, just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love it. Thank you, James.
He did a good job. Thank you, James. He did a wonderful job.
He really, really did. Okay.
And we love that people can get in there. There's if they'll get on the website, there's going to be new stuff added all the time, and look for new and interesting things.
All right. So I've shared just a little bit about, the name and what I was seeing there. And I wanted to share just a couple of things out of the Testament of Gad. Now, I find it really interesting that right in the beginning, he talks about being the ninth son, but yet when you look at birth order, he's seventh in birth order. So right. I have no earthly idea what that's about. I noticed it and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to spend time on that later because I'm not sure what that's about. But I think that the story that impressed me the most in here was that, Gad is a warrior. He's out keeping the flocks, with his brother. Joseph is sent to check on him. He's not doing well. He's young. He's not handling that type of hard labor very well. So he's sent back home. And when he's sent back home, he brings a little tale with him. And the tale that he brings is that Gad and some of the other brothers are taking from the flock for themselves and basically enriching themselves and eating. And it is a twisted view of what has happened. It's not an outright falsehood, but it's twisted in a way that it is falsely presented, right?
It is.
Because what's actually happened is a bear has come along and attacked a sheep, and Gad goes after the bear and kills it. And then the sheep has been injured in such a way that it is better for this sheep to go ahead and be slaughtered, to put it out of any pain or misery. And then they do partake of that sheep. But it's not like he was going through the best of the sheep and looking for what he could have for himself, which is kind of how it was presented to his dad by Joseph, right? And so he is furious, it's a a self-righteous anger. And I don't know about you, Leigh, but I can get mad over something, but boy, if I think that I have a right to that anger, it's like the most destructive kind of anger for me.
Yeah.
What
It beats you
happens
up.
to me, right?
Mm.
It does. It puffs you up, and I deserve better than this, and no one should be doing this, and this isn't fair. And that self-righteousness that can arise in it, makes you forget all the stuff that you didn't suffer for that you probably should have. you know all the
Right.
things that you did do wrong that you weren't, put to task for. Self-righteousness is a big one, and you stew on that. Now, when I wrote my thing about the heart of the tribes, when I first wrote it, what Yah showed me was that the verse that would match this the best for me is that for the heart of Gad was Psalm 18:29 and 30. And it says, "For by you I've run through a troop, and by my Elohim have I leaped over a wall." And that troop is one of those plays on his name, right? "And by you I've leaped over a wall. As for El, his way is perfect. The word of Yahweh is tried. He is a buckler to all those that trust in him." And this is why this really hit me, is because if I am experiencing a self-righteous anger, my faith and my ability to trust in Yah is at the bottom of everything, because I'm looking to bulldoze my way through, right? I'm
Right.
thinking I can take care of this because this is right, and it's right according to how I see things and what
Mm.
my perception is and how things should line up. And that's what we end up doing, you know?
Right.
So those things really hit me. I mean, there's so much to go into, and I know that you and I are going to do some writing, and we may have to go through a second time and do some part twos of things. But if I was going to share my most important things about Gad for right this second, I wanted to share that. Now I want to give you a chance to share, and then if we have time, then we may come back to me for a little bit more of what I was seeing there with Gad.
Okay. And you interject with me,
Okay.
because a lot of this is what I took off of your stuff, your teaching anyway. This came, I just wanted to do a brief. You already did the Gadad. That was on the form you sent me when we first decided to embark on this journey. Although
Right.
I didn't break it down other than to say what it meant, because honestly, it stumped me. So you did a wonderful job explaining a troop cometh with the $2. I was like, you've got a camel, a foot, a 10. I don't know how all that works. Seventh child born to Yaakov and Leah. This was when Gad was born. Leah said, "A troop cometh." I thought that was pretty interesting. And the banner
Mhm.
is 2 tents, which is the $2 or the tent door there. So that was
Yeah.
interesting. Um, God was a warrior, or Gad. Gad was a warrior tribe that Reuben and half the tribe of Manasseh requested to stay on the east side of the Jordan River. I thought that was interesting to
Uh-huh.
mention, forfeiting their inheritance. And Moshe basically shamed them into fighting. He
Mhm.
said, shall your brethren go to war and shall ye sit here? Like, are you going to sit here while they're doing that? Like, what's your deal? I found that interesting too.
Yeah.
Like,
You know
he
what I found
basically shamed
interesting
them.
too? You know what I found interesting too with that is the fact that they made that decision. Like, here they've been waiting all this time, 40 years, a whole new generation, and they get to the doorway
Yeah.
that's going to lead to the promised land, and they go, I don't want to go through that door. I'd rather stay here on this side.
Right.
I don't want to like chuck in my luck, my fortune with the unknown of what Yahweh might have for me. I think we'd rather stay back here. This looks good enough, right?
Right. And how many times do we do that? Like, I have seen that in myself, to not have the power to push through, Like, okay, I know you've got me. This is terrifying, but okay, I'm going to cross that river, if that's what you want. And you noted, let's see, that one thing that was really interesting is you noted Gad was his own worst enemy. That was in your 12 tribes writings that you have. And I love that. I can't wait to.
Yeah. And a lot of that I got from studying this for 20 years.
The Tribes of Israel.
Yeah. By Gwen Shaw. Mm-hmm.
I have found a couple of copies on eBay. I've got one I'm looking at right now. So there are still copies of that out there you can get to.
What a great work she did with that.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you can actually look up online. There are a couple of places that have PDFs with part of it that you can read, but it's a lot of information to just print up on your own. I'd much rather get the book,
Yeah.
So the immune and hematologic systems together, they are fighting warriors and life sustainers, right? And Gad was the greatest warrior of all the tribes. And they raised the livestock that fed and sustained their people. So that there's that dual component. The hematological system is the blood and its components. It includes bone marrow, blood, and blood components. I don't know why I repeated that, but Leviticus 17:11, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. And as we will see, that's 100% fact.
Wow.
So the blood's general function is to transport the substances, regulate body temperature, pH, the fluid balances, transport cells that offer body protection. It also carries our oxygen and waste material and carbon dioxide from body tissues to body tissues, whichever direction they need to go. The human body contains 4 to 6 liters of blood, and 45% are formed elements, and the remainder is plasma. All formed elements are produced within the stem cell and the red bone marrow, aka hematopoietic tissue. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Are found in the flat, irregular bones and in the epiphyses of the long bones, which is the ends of the long bones.
Okay. Where it's kind of bulbous.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the epiphysis. I can't ever say that either. And our plasma is made up of 91% water, and it contains proteins that are made by our liver, which includes clotting factors, albumin, and globulins. And we're going to see liver important here. Red blood cells live for only 120 days, then are destroyed in the liver, spleen, and bone marrow. And the red blood cells carry oxygen bonded to the iron and hemoglobin, and they're made in the red bone marrow, which is awesome. And bilirubin, that's what makes your kids look like a carrot when they're first born. It's just the body's way of showing it's trying to catch up and deal with being on the outside of the body. And sometimes you may see them under a little Billy light where we are giving them a suntan. It's just to help reprocess and get out all that waste of the broke down red blood cells.
Wow.
And jaundice, that's jaundice that we see there. And people with liver issues, they'll have yellow eyes instead of the whites of their eyes. And that's how you know your liver is having issues.
Wow.
Because that liver takes the bilirubin from the blood and changes its chemical makeup so that it can be passed out in your stool as bile. So when that doesn't work right, you'll see skin turn yellow and the whites of your eyes turn yellow. That's a warning sign. So your white blood cells are larger than the red blood cells, and they have a nuclei when they mature. Granular white blood cells are the neutrophils, eosinophils, and the basophils that you were talking about. The lymphocytes and the monocytes are the agranular, and they're produced in the red bone marrow and your lymphatic tissues. And then here we also see those T lymphocytes. They complete their development in your thymus. And those T cells are the strongest warriors, but they are limited in numbers. I see here, Leigh says their eldest had to go under the lights when he was yellow. Yes, that absolutely happened to almost all of my children. They all turned yellow.
That's Kat. And the same thing happened with my daughter too.
Yeah.
In fact, they didn't put her in the light. They told me to put her in front of the
In the
window.
window. Yep. Yep. Set
To
them
put
in
me
the
in the window.
window. That's what they did back in the day too.
Yeah.
And shalom, Laura Lee. Glad you're here. Neutrophils are more numerous. So we don't have a lot of T cells, but they're our strongest warriors. But we have those neutrophils that are more numerous, and they kill the foreign materials. They're like the large troop of warriors in our blood, like the backup guys. So you got the front runner guys that are the T cells. There aren't very many, but they're your big, strongest guys that go out in front. And then you've got this huge troop behind them that's the neutrophils. They're the backup. And then you've got the eosinophils, which combat the effects of the histamine. That's your allergy response you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they detoxify the foreign proteins due to allergic reactions like you had in response to parasitic infections. So they handle the reactions to the foreign attacks. So as the T cells and the neutrophils get dealt with and knocked down, these guys are right there to handle that backup.
Yeah, I had noticed this comment from Ren, and she said that, when I was talking about that, getting bit by the brown recluse or whatever,
Yes.
and she said it happened to her, or I was talking about my chemical reaction when she posted this, of the man who had on so much cologne at the chiropractor. Anyway, it happened to me, multiple wasp stings and then flu. Exactly. Because I went through that. When we first moved to this campground, I had hit an underground wasp nest, and I got bit about, I don't know, at least 6 times, and Quincy got bit too. And again, I had a reaction
You
like
had
that.
this eosinophil response because it
Yeah.
combats the histamine, and the histamine is released when we get stung by those things, right?
I even noticed it with mosquito bites. I am extremely
I am
sensitive
too.
to mosquito
James
bites.
too. And they're worse now. I don't know what has changed with mosquitoes, but the last 2 years, like I get whelps. James actually, sometimes I'm afraid it's a spider bite, but it's not. It has that bullseye effect. It's they're so strong now. There's something different about them.
Well, I do know that they were genetically modified down in the lower part of Florida and released. Yeah. So,
they don't
a lot
just stay
of things
there.
are being monkeyed around with that should not be,
Right.
God gave us a very specific commandment not to mingle the seed. And this is exactly what's going on with all the CRISPR technology and the different things,
And they may be designing in a way to where we have these histamine effects and we end up chronically ill, because when we're chronically ill, we make people a lot of money, for those that still are in, letting themselves be treated by modern medicine. Most of the modern medicine, you're just paying millionaires.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we see the basophils are at the lowest rank, and they release the heparin and histamine as part of an inflammatory reaction, though. So this is the swelling, because it's trying to make a barrier against the invader. So it sends those fluids to an area of where you get a sting, because when you get that knot, that's all those fluids trying to isolate what that invader was and keep it right here rather than let it go on into your bloodstream. So that's why you get a knot and a welt. Okay. It's trying to grab that stuff and just hang on to it in the knot or wherever it is you got bit. I see Laura Lee say, I've heard Lyme can be gotten by mosquitoes, and I wouldn't doubt it, because I think you can get just about anything from a mosquito.
I think so too. Yeah.
We camped on an island in Florida that didn't have any electricity years ago, and it was wonderful. But however, there were bugs and mosquitoes worse than I've ever seen in my life. And when I got back, I actually got an illness, an inflammatory response. I got a cold. I hurt all over. So I definitely had that overreaction to those mosquitoes. It was not fun.
Yeah.
So common blood disorders include anemia, which is most common, not enough iron, bleeding disorders such as hemophilia, blood clots, and blood cancers such as leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma. However, the three deadliest blood diseases are human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. And the reason why that one is deadly is it kills off those T cell fighters first. So it takes out your best warriors. It takes out your frontline gladiators that are on the front line there to, put a hurt on anything that tries to get in. A person with HIV dies from the inability to fight off common bacteria and viruses due to their warrior T cell fighters being taken out. So it's not HIV that kills them. It's generally a common cold or pneumonia, and they cannot fight it. It becomes so opportunistic. They end up with all kinds of skin lesions and skin cancers because that defense system has been wiped out, and there's no stopping the common things that we normally don't even realize we're combating. Those take over. And then we also see hepatitis B virus, which takes out the liver, which is our most important filter in the body. And the same with hepatitis C virus. Your liver is a giant filter. It filters out so much of the things that we don't need. And I know this is really small because there was so much in here, but just to touch on a little bit, the immune system is the warriors of our body. Our innate immune system is our skin, and the clear layer over our eyes, over our cornea, and their specialized tissues lining the inside of our lung. All of these are considered part of our skin, even the ones that are on the inside and the outside and over our eyes. There are protection. I see them as like, they have that shield when you go into battle. Your skin is your shield, right?
Yeah.
And it's fighting for you constantly. You just think your skin's hanging on your bones. It's not. It is protecting and fighting for you.
It's so interesting then when we look at that, because it really, makes us think about the fact that no tribe is going to make it on their own, right?
No.
Because no body system is going to just be able to sustain the body all by itself. It's going to take working with the different systems. And Asher is what we have for the skin system,
Right.
which we'll be going into soon here, and I can't remember if that was the next on the list. Let's see. Let me look at where we're going
I don't
next.
have my list up here.
No, we're going to Joseph first. We're going to Joseph next after Gad.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, really interesting. So it'll take us a little while to get to Asher, but we'll get to that one in full depth. But yeah, just interesting how they overlap, correspond, are so important one to another.
Amen. And the Father set it up that way. They work together. First, He made us, the 12 body systems, He made us. And then it's reflective in the tabernacle and the 12 tribes and what they had to do. It's reflective of the body.
And despite the fact that, I just had to pick an order for us to go in. So I picked the marching order, right, of the wilderness. But birth order wise and full blood brother wise, another son of Zilpah, it's Gad and Asher. So that's really interesting, right?
That
there.
It's together like
they
that.
are together like that. Yeah. So it just depends, because all throughout scriptures, one time they're in one order, one time they're in another order, they're in another order. To me, that shows the importance of every tribe working with every other tribe and every body system getting along with every other body system.
So you see Asher basically here as a part of the immune system helping Gad, because that's what and constantly fighting for you. It's here constant. You may not realize it, but covering your eyes, we don't even realize the stuff that would be getting into our eyes if we didn't have that covering, or even in our lungs and in our bladder, our digestive system is so important,
Yeah.
And the main parts, though, of our immune system are in our cells. There are white blood cells, our antibodies, the complement system, the lymphatic system. I'll just briefly touch that, like the white blood cells, these are our covert warriors of our immune system. They're constantly searching out the breaches to our defense system, locating any invading enemy. So I just see them as constantly pacing, like a wall, watching for any kind of breach, like the warrior on the wall, pacing back and forth.
That's really interesting. I can see it in your notes there, how they're looking for foreign invaders or microbes such as the bacteria, the viruses, the parasites, and the fungi. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're constantly walking that wall,
Right.
making sure and grabbing them. That's why when you're sick, they check your white blood cell count first, because we want to know, is it high? Is it low? That can tell us different things about not only if you're fighting an infection, but if you have sustained an injury to your immune system that is causing your inability to produce white blood cells to fight,
Wow.
and the lymphoma, certain blood cancers that we'll see you not have any white blood cells. That's what will happen when we check your blood, is they'll just be depleted.
Yeah.
So then we've got antibodies, which are proteins produced by the immune system in response to an infection. So there's already been a breach, and your antibodies snap into action. They're the defense system, and they work to destroy disease-causing organisms, such as the viruses or bacteria, and they block them from infecting human cells. So the rest of your cells are trying to keep them out. That's what those antibodies are doing. And I saw these as the warriors called in after the breach has happened, after somebody's already got over the wall, after that's been completed, and the enemy is in the camp, but they're blocking them to keep them from getting further in, right? So they've still got them at like an antechamber outside. They're within the wall, but they're not on into the camp yet.
Right.
So then we've got a complement system, which is made up of proteins whose actions complement the work done by the antibodies. So they're like a backup to the antibodies, and they're like backup troops, like they're keeping them held off a little bit, but people are getting tired. So you've got to send this one in or that one in as support and further assistance.
Wow.
And then we've got our lymphatic system, which we've talked about a lot, is a network of delicate tubes throughout the body, and our lymph nodes, lymph glands, and they trap the microbes. These lymph vessels and tubes carry the lymph, which is that colorless fluid. And what they'll do is that they grab that infection, fighting with the white blood cells, and they whoosh it out, right?
Yeah.
That's why you get inflamed lymph nodes, under your arm or in your necks when you have an infection, because they've grabbed that stuff and it's held in that one location. So it doesn't just go everywhere.
Oh yeah. And that's what, I can almost tell, like, how I'm doing. There are certain lymph nodes within my body, right at the back of the skull, at my, under my arms.
That'll swell up.
It'll swell, yeah. And I can tell,
and that's how you know you're fighting. That's how you know your body is actually at that moment fighting and finding, not just fighting, but finding invaders at that moment,
It's the important part also of, like, why when you have stuff like this, that you can't just give up and lay on the couch, because you'll just get sicker and sicker if you do. Even though sometimes that feels like all you want to do, you have to have movement to keep that lymph flowing so that it will get rid of this stuff, but yet if you overdo it in exercise, your whole body will go into absolute rebellion, so it's such this delicate balance when you're dealing with.
See that here, how delicate this balance is. If any one of these things are out of whack, it just throws off the whole battle, right?
Yeah.
And then that invader gets in and takes over,
Yeah.
The other components we see in the immune are your spleen. The people that have what we call mono, they have to watch their spleen because
Mhm.
that's the blood filtering organ that removes those microbes and it holds them there. So your spleen can get inflamed and it's very painful. And a lot of people that have had that have an issue with it the rest of their life. It's
Yeah, that's one of the things that I deal with. It's they call it Epstein-Barr or
right.
like a chronic Epstein-Barr, and that's one of my co-infections that works along with the sears and the other junk that's going on. It's part of the ball of wax for me,
And you see
and
that
I deal
antibodies
with
in
that
your
all the time.
lymphocytes are affected there, right?
Yeah,
So that's why. That's why
yeah.
that is an issue.
And it's so funny because with no medical knowledge, I can tell you right where my spleen is.
Yeah, because it
Because I can
hurts.
feel it every
Yeah,
day. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I know lots of people that have had Epstein-Barr, and they can do the same. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I know exactly where my spleen is.
Yep.
So your bone marrow is that spongy tissue found inside your bones, and that produces those red blood cells that our body needs to carry oxygen. So without that, you see a lot of bone cancers. People have blue lips or look blue around their lips or their fingertips because they're just not able to transport that oxygen
Wow.
to everywhere that they need to. The first thing we learn as a nurse is you look at your patient before you do anything else. You use your eyeballs because you can do a full body assessment pretty quick on a person just by looking at them and talking to them. If they can't say more than a word or two without taking a breath, if they're leaning forward, if they're ashen looking, like you know that they're having one of these issues where they're not getting enough oxygen.
Wow.
So then we see the thymus filters and monitors your blood content. That's constantly, I see that like a computer. It's just looking through everything, and it produces those white blood cells called the T lymphocytes. That's your fighter guys. That's your, big monster fighter, strong fighters. And the most common disorders we see are type 1 diabetes. That's typically a child is born with that. Autoimmune disease, which is what Chelle is very familiar with, is the body attacking itself. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, celiac disease, asthma. That familiar Mediterranean fever. We had a friend of ours in another Telegram group that got very ill with fevers that Chelle was helping, and this is exactly what he had.
Wow.
Is an autoimmune disorder called familial Mediterranean fever. And it is a lifelong thing. They'll run a fever. They don't process their blood. They can end up very severely anemic and need blood. And that's a lot of the reason why they run fevers.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you and Karen and Joe helped him much more than I did. I just helped connect.
You
But
connected the dots.
yeah, can I
And
share
he is doing
something?
much better. He is doing
I'm
much
so
better.
glad to hear that about James. Can I share while you're on
Yeah.
that? Can I share something real quick with you that I just saw this morning?
Yes.
So this is an interesting book. This is called Exposing Spiritual Roots of Disease.
Awesome.
Which is really interesting. Dr. Henry Wright, and he had written a book a long time ago, which I used to have before I had to get rid of most of my books, called A More Excellent Way. And he did this whole clinic and things. And I've always found his work very, very interesting. And so I was looking here. Let me just see if I can get back and find exactly where I was. He's talking about, okay, so he's basically got it entitled here, what are we allergic to ourselves? It's the spiritual roots of the autoimmune disease is what he's talking about. And he says that we've talked about how our relationship with God is restored through repentance when we receive his forgiveness through Christ, cast down thoughts that are not from him, and renew our minds in his word. Our relationship with others is restored when we repent, when we forgive them or ask their forgiveness, when we cast aside hatred and malice. But what about the breakdown in relationship with ourselves? Do you know how many people struggle with self-hatred, rejection, and a belief that they are unlovable? There's a plague in our culture of self-hatred or self-loathing. People devalue their existence, put themselves down, and carry a burden of guilt and shame that is too heavy to bear. It is not from God for his glory, but from the enemy for his glory. And then he quotes Proverbs 23:7, as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Could never be truer than it is with people who believe that neither God nor anyone else loves them. They are convinced that they are not worthy of that love. Once again, the cause is the inner workings of our thoughts, believing the enemy's lie that we should hate ourselves instead of believing God's word, which brings the truth of his love and his redemption. Then it just goes into, so how does self-hatred, or what I call an unloving negativity, affect the immune system? A person who hates themselves dwells continually on these self-rejection thoughts and temptations from the enemy. If the thoughts are not cast down, the hypothalamus responds to the temptation, having been triggered that something is seriously wrong. Just as in the other scenarios, the hypothalamus begins to misfire and send the wrong impulses to other parts of the endocrine system. The result is that the immune system will weaken and become compromised. The bottom line of this malfunction is autoimmune disease. The body becomes allergic to itself. It says, how
Wow.
can this be? Because the person has become allergic to themselves spiritually.
Wow. I've been all of those things and I totally can see all of that.
Yeah.
Spot on. Absolutely. In fact, that I'm going to jump forward. You did already cover, that this was his testament. And I think you covered
Yeah.
this part about the hatred. This part really hit me. In the Testament of Gad, chapter 5:9, for Yah brought upon me a disease of the liver, and had not the prayers of Jacob, my father, succored me, it had hardly failed, but my spirit had departed.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds interesting. It almost sounds
Yeah.
like he lost his ruach during this.
Yeah.
Could he have died? Had like a near death experience? It sounds pretty bad. You can't live without
Yeah.
your liver. I'll tell you that. Um, For by what things a man transgresseth, I can talk. By the same he is punished.
Yeah.
Since therefore my liver was set mercilessly against Joseph. He was so mad, like you said.
He
And
was.
my liver too, I suffered mercilessly. So he could have had a near death experience.
He really could have.
He was judged for 11 months. He went through this almost a year, for so long a time as I had been angry against Joseph. So his punishment was the same amount of time he was so wroth with his brother.
Yeah.
So I did some research and went down a rabbit hole and found this liverdoctor.com. This is a physician that deals primarily with alcoholics and addictions and different body system dysfunction related to those years of going through that. And according to him, your emotions can affect the health of your liver. Most of our organs are connected to an emotion, and the liver is the organ connected to anger. How many times when we've been doing this has each of the brothers had an issue in their liver? They're angry in their liver. They're wroth in their liver. They have pain in their liver.
Yeah.
Here we see why, because it's connected to anger.
Over and over and over.
Over
It's
and
just,
over.
wow.
And most are unaware of the correlation between the anger and the effect on the liver. There is a depth of the connection, and the state of the liver is actually fundamental to how emotion is felt, which shapes actions or reactions to what life gives us.
Wow.
It is hard to accept life on life's terms when one's liver is toxic with unwanted chemicals. We must learn how to control our anger, he said, and lifestyle choices such as stress, overeating, alcohol, or drug abuse.
Yeah.
Wow, this just hit me like boom when I found something just told me you've got to look at the correlation between anger, hate, and your liver. And
Oh, yeah.
there is a definite connection in these things. And you, let me tell you, you can't live without your liver. That's one
No.
thing you absolutely cannot. You can live with one kidney, you can live with no kidneys. You know, there's a lot of things you can live without, but your liver is not one of them.
Right. Wow.
So intrinsically, we see that we have to deal with our anger, right? We have
Yeah.
to deal with our anger, and we can't harbor hate and anger. It will kill you.
It
No
will
joke.
literally kill you.
It will kill you. And if any patient I've ever had in liver failure, it is painful. It's extremely painful because those toxins are not being filtered out. They blow up like a balloon. Your skin
Mm.
swells, your belly swells. It's a very painful situation. So I don't doubt for a minute that his spirit departed him, you know, for however long. He sounds like he had a near death experience to me.
Yeah.
He's a very ill person, and he had to deal with his anger. He had to deal with it.
Right. Mm.
Yeah. So and I put in here what you had said, as we see studying out the immune system and the hematological system, they directly reflect Gad on a deep intrinsic level because they are known warriors and life sustainers. But when afflicted and out of the order of Yahweh, when we're not in order with him and his purpose for our life and our feelings, it can be deadly and dangerous against its own self. And like you said, Gad was his own worst enemy at times.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we do the same. Like you said, we get this righteous anger about how dare them say that about me,
Yeah.
or blah, blah, blah. And you will chew on that until you do make yourself sick. And I've done it. I've made
done it too.
sick, like totally not be able to get out of a bed. And you know what? It's not affecting that other person. In fact, they probably don't even know what's happening, you know?
I know that's always the wildest part of it to me. You know, when you go back and you look at that and know that, you know, I have stewed on this in my mind. Like I have allowed this situation that this person did to me to totally overtake whatever amount of time that it's taken in my life. And they are happy as a lark, you know, just
Right.
going along their way,
Tra-la-la, no
whatever.
big deal.
Not a bit concerned about what they did.
You were talking about the arrangement in the camp, and of course they camped. Gad was with Reuben and Simeon, right?
Right.
And again, you know, we did the urinary system and showed that it works as a filter of the blood to remove the toxins and waste from the body, which works with this system hand in hand because it's the blood. You know, the blood is the life. You have to take the toxins out. You got to take the anger out. Anger is a toxin, very obviously a toxin within our body, you know. And then Simeon is our endocrine system. So without him sending the messages to tell us what to do with everything, nothing would work.
Yeah.
So there is your description of how the tribes work together, at least on this side. And we're going to see with each side that we go to how important and interconnected, not just with who they camp with, but with everyone else, like Asher in the skin, you know. And it's just been wonderful.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be able to go deeper in when we're writing and whatnot, but that's pretty much what I have.
That was really,
It was a lot.
yeah, it's a lot, but it's so interesting. I was looking just to see, you know, the one other thing that I had was I thought it was very interesting that Gad is also the name of a deity, you know. So I did just a little bit of digging on that. So out of Wikipedia, I just wanted to read this little bit that Gad was the name of the pan-Semitic god of fortune, usually depicted as a male, but sometimes as a female, and is attested in ancient records of Aram and Arabia. Gad is also mentioned in the Bible as a deity in the book of Isaiah. It's in Isaiah 65:11. Some translators simply call it the god of fortune. And it's literally spelled Gad, the same
is.
exact way,
It is.
Um, he was worshipped by a number of Hebrews during the Babylonian captivity. So Gad apparently differed from the god of destiny, who was known as Mani. The root verb in Gad means to cut or divide, and this comes from the idea of being meted out. It is. It's really interesting.
So interesting.
Yeah. So how widespread the cult of Gad, the deity, was in Canaanite times may be inferred from the names Baal God, a city at the foot of Mount Hermon, and Migdal Gad in the territory of Judah. Now, I had done this. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Let me go here. So when we did, let me move it. Sorry. I've almost got it. When we did on a woman's show our favorite characters, or right, I wanted to do Mary Magdalene, right? And what I was just impressed to do that. So here is another connection with Gad, because this was the same territory of Gad.
As Migdal.
Yeah, here it is. Remember, you can see it here. Well, I didn't add it to the stream. So here it is. The Migdal Eder. I'm not going to go back through that whole teaching, but here it is with this Gadal, right? Because this is from Gadal. That's what Migdal is from. The M is the from. So Gadal is the primitive root, and it means to twist in various senses, as in body, mind, estate, honor, and pride, right? Something that becomes twisted. And isn't that what it is when we take up our own cause of that hatred and self, I'm going to get justice for myself. I'm not going to trust Yah. I'm going to get it for me. It's a real twisting of the roles and what we should be doing.
And it twists you up on the inside too, doesn't it, Chelle?
It does. It does. Let me see if I could find the exact picture I wanted to show of that again. Here it is. So we can see it's a high place, right?
Right.
This is exactly what we're dealing with. The high places. There it is.
It is.
Yeah. It's those high places. This is where Miriam of Migdal was from, and this is another territory in Gad. So I just found that interesting. There is that, and when you look at it in another document that I was reviewing here, let me see if I can switch back to it to get my notes. Okay, so when you look, I was looking at the JewishEncyclopedia.com, right? Gad. All right, so let me just kind of read through that a little bit. Okay, Gad, the god of fortune, is frequently invoked in Talmudic magic formulas of goodwill and wishes. Okay, so I found that very interesting. And when I started doing some research, and I'm just kind of in the middle of it, so I'm just going to mention it, but what hit me, and it was because Leigh and I were having a conversation on the phone last night, and she says, well, it reminds me of like the fortune of In God We Trust that's on our money. And I was like, I have a book about that, and I do. All right. I have a book. I'm
gonna have to borrow that book.
That's right. And so I had to look that up and see what they were saying. And it is like what they're explaining in here with all the mottos that are on our money, it is definitely tied up with that God named Gad, that little g God named Gad. Yeah. Right. Very, very interesting. And
interesting. You're going to have to dig into that and do reports from under the desk on that.
I think I will have to do that. That would be a good report.
That's so interesting.
Under the desk. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, gosh, this has been really interesting. And I know we have to go because you've got another show to do. You and James, what are you guys talking about today?
Oh, wow. tonight we are going to be talking about hearts. Men's hearts will fail them. Where are you standing? Are you standing on sinking sand? Are you standing on the rock? Is your heart going to fail you for what you're going to see? Because we're in those times. And like you said, Yah puts different things on our hearts, and we always seem to be around on the same wavelength. But this one, in the last 2 weeks, he's hammered it into my dreams, and when I wake up, and when I'm not sleeping, and that's what I think all of us are trying to do, is to get everyone ready and give hope and show you where you can stand. And then tomorrow on Mercy Poured Forth, earlier this week, it just hit me, and you've been talking about letting anger take over, your righteous anger, where you think, I've got to hang on to this and get revenge, or I've got to deal with this. Tomorrow I'm talking about not looking back and learning lessons from Lot's wife, and
that's wonderful,
and how we really don't need to look back. There's nothing back there to look on, and that includes hurts and angers, and that's been the hardest thing in my life to learn, is to set stuff down and walk forward and stop looking back. Just stop. There's nothing back there.
This is the interesting thing that, I'm watching develop between all of the different show hosts here on the platform and the different messages we're bringing forth. It really is just one message from Yah, brought in so many different ways, all designed to help us rise up above the circumstances and do the best that we can do with Yah's help to finish our course well.
Right. And each one reaches a tribe, right? Like what my voice may reach one, yours reaches another, where we all speak differently, but that's because we're designed to reach different people, and all together we're reaching all of them, but it takes all of us to do that.
It really does. I mean, that was what we saw, in the beginning, when we're looking at why was the gospel given to us in 4 different ways.
Exactly.
And that's the answer, because we're different people and we hear differently, and different things speak to our personalities. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that Yah communicates with us in different ways, very individually, so we can understand what it is that he's saying and wants us to do. No one's wrong in it. That's the hard part about, like, when you get into like rigid religiosity, and this is the way it's got to be done. You either get inside this box or get out. Right. And that's how most religious things are presented. And it's so anti
Yeah.
I mean, it's because
he's never been in a box.
never will be, and did not create us to be that way.
No.
He made us so varied and individualistic because he delights in that.
Yes. And each one of us exactly how we are. And there's people out there that will be able to understand and connect with each one of us. You know. Praise Yah for this. I love it. I love it all.
Me too. And this has just been a real blessing. I'm so glad. Thank you everyone for coming and joining us today. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you his shalom.
Shalom.
All righty. Shalom, everyone. And we hope you'll come back and join us next week, and come join Leigh and James in about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Love
y'all. Love you.
Bye, everyone.
Their journey began in Yasharel, but they were scattered across the face of the earth, each one with its own beats, and each one with its own rhythm. As the dry bones are being revived, the beat begins again at the heart of the tribe.